The faction mechanics for KISLEV have been revealed. After skipping over them after their initial reveal, Creative Assembly has circled back around to show how the Frozen Warriors in the North will play in Warhammer 3, a fierce land with fierce belief in its people and the power of the gods to stand against the chaos seeping from the North. They have endured much, but they will continue until their mastery of the Northern Chaos Waste is complete and the evil is driven from their lands once and for all. The primary resource and mechanic for KISLEV will be devotion. If it hasn't been clear up until this point, the Creative Assembly is painting KISLEVites as a fairly religious sort. As they say it, when you're freezing to death on your 50th day since you last saw the sun in your family, digging at the ice to get ever closer to literal demons and making sure they aren't coming from your home, your people, and everything you hold dear, well, it helps to have something to believe in. In-game, devotion is a representation of how well your faction is upholding the ideals of KISLEV and how easily it can keep the passion of the common people focused on destroying chaos. It's gained by combating and destroying armies of chaos. Defeating chaos-aligned armies provides some devotion, while sacrificing any captives you've taken post-battle gives another chunk. Various buildings and decisions can also generate devotion, with the gods of KISLEV responding to the devotion of their people. Should your devotion dip too low, though, chaos armies may attack your homeland, finding it easier to manifest and invade a people who, frankly, don't much believe in anything anymore. Devotion will drop when you commit heretical actions, which in this case is declaring war on other KISLEV factions, but it can also be spent on buildings and technology that are closely aligned to faith. These can be great places of worship, for example, or improvements to the invocations the people of KISLEV use to worship their gods. Overall, it sounds a bit like the chivalry system from Bretonnia back in the day, but with a few more things to spend it on. I can't help but think this particular mechanic would have been excellent for Volkmar the Grim if he was given a more modern style of Warhammer DLC. The primary use of devotion, though, is to perform one of 4 rituals to the Motherland. These represent honoring one of the 4 main gods of the KISLEVite faith. The divine pantheon is Saliak, god of healing and comfort, a teacher of common sense who unfortunately can't bring back the dead, who increases growth and replenishment rate faction-wide. Daz, god of fire and the sun, legendary for giving knowledge of how fire works to ancient human war chiefs, and who increases income from trade and all of your buildings. Urson, god of bears, who is seen as the shepherd and protector of KISLEV, which is a bit weird because I can't think of a bear shepherding things, but hey, that's me, who causes attrition to all enemies in your lands and provides a unique army ability that puts a powerful hex on a target area. Tor, god of thunder and lightning, and a mighty warrior who cracks the sky, who is unique and distinct and illegally binding away from Thor, and gives all armies additional melee attack and bestows a unique ability to massively increase damage potential in an area for a short time. Each ritual to the Motherland also causes a great winter to whip across KISLEV, spreading snow across any battles in the lands and dissuading enemies from attacking. Should your devotion be enough, you can switch between or continue the effects at will. These great storms and rituals also serve to incite the populace to support your faction, but we'll get to that in a moment. These gods are a slightly more interesting version of faction rights from Warhammer 2, where you had to choose between one of 4 abilities that are on a 10-turn or so cooldown. With the release of a Total War Saga Troy last year, many people expected the Pantheon system would make its way into Warhammer 3 as well, but this is the first time we've actually seen gods competing against one another, and you'll notice there's not really a competition happening. You just pay and you get the ability. So we still haven't actually seen that put into the game yet. The most interesting detail of this is that when you perform a rite, all of KISLEV's battles become covered in snow, implying there are going to be unique battle maps just for KISLEV. This has huge potential for something like the Vampire Counts faction, who possibly could get night-only battles with a similar system and rite. But KISLEV itself is a nation divided. While it remains resolute against the coming of chaos, the death of the Red Tsar, the previous leader of KISLEV, and the rise of his daughter Katerin to the throne has put the political landscape into a bit of disarray. Now there are 2 major factions, Tsarina Katerin and her Ice Court, and the Supreme Patriarch Kostaltine and the Great Orthodoxy, who are both vying for ultimate control of KISLEV. The two dare not declare open war against one another, no matter how much their hatred for the other's position. It would simply be too costly for the nation and make them appear too weak in a time of crisis, and they're already both dealing with rebellions on both of their borders. However, they are gathering followers in the hope of proving that their faction is the greatest and should be the one to lead KISLEV as a single united nation. Gathering followers comes from any number of sources, further enhanced by rituals you decide to undertake and passive gains from certain buildings. As a faction gains more followers, they will increase their relationship with the minor factions of KISLEV, as well as proving to the people and their troops that they are the rightful leader. Should the vast majority of KISLEVites choose one side or the other, it will become dominant and confederate their opponents and reign supreme. Of course, both factions are more than willing to spend gold or devotion to smear their opponents. This really represents the spiritual conflict for control of the Motherland and all its people. Whoever wins will still have chaos, the empire, vampires, and ogres, and worse to deal with, but that is after they've taken control of KISLEV. A system where you're competing for the love of your people against other factions will be instantly recognizable to anyone who has played Rome 2. It was fun then, it'll be fun now, and it helps to gatekeep so that you don't confederate too quickly. KISLEV itself has a strict social hierarchy, and the Adamants are what sit between the Tsarina and her people. They are the rulers of cities and regions, conducting the everyday business that keeps the nation ticking over and ensuring chaos cannot get a foothold. In-game, Adamants are special lords, recruited to serve a province, and they can affect the income, growth, control, and corruption of the area they govern. They also have various special abilities that can develop more as their career continues, but they don't earn experience points like traditional lords, and instead face dilemmas that will then increase their skills. However, in times of dire need, or really whenever you want, Adamants can be drafted as lords to lead armies. They're absolutely free to recruit, as you already have control of the Adamant, and though they lack the battle-specific random traits of normal lords, and they won't be providing their province benefits while they're in the field, they are extremely useful to pull into a fight. If they die, they're gone, and a new one will need to be recruited to run their province. You only get one Adamant per 2 provinces you control, which doesn't sound like very much, but the layout of KISLEV is somewhat unique in that only 3 big cities dominate most of their landscape: KISLEV, Prague, and Erengrad, so you won't really need to spread them very thin. And it should be pointed out that it's been a very long time since the 3 were united under one banner, and that really will be your objective for the early game. The geography of the area also leads to some other massive single settlements you'll need to deal with, specifically the Skaven Hell Pit to the north. Between these great areas are scores of smaller towns and villages, scratching out a living and funding the war efforts with men, farms, and weapons. Which of these deserve the attention of your Adamants is entirely up to you. The Adamant System sounds like an evolution of the governor system from the historic Total War games. Previously, you could assign a governor to a province and they would help boost production in the area. But if the area was ever attacked, it was difficult to take control of the governor and lead them out to fight, which has been remedied here and makes it so you can have a governor and general ready to go at any time. The Ice Witches and Frost Maidens of KISLEV are not simply born with their extraordinary powers and the wherewithal to use them. They must be trained in a mansion in upstate New York, the Ice Court. The cost and decisions related to their education then falls on your shoulders. Rather than simply hiring these lords and heroes, you must first pay for them to go through a training regiment. Only then can they be promoted to full X-Men. While this means hiring a new hero or lord takes many more turns than it normally would, it also gives you the opportunity to mold them into what you currently need. Each turn in training will give you a decision on how you would like your new recruit to specialize, which lore of magic they should use, which abilities, which passive bonuses for any troops that are under their command. Researching technologies can change the number of Ice Witches and Frost Maidens that can be trained at any one time, as well as the recruitment capacity for them, so you can recruit more. Once training is complete, they are added to your recruitment pool at a discounted price. As you did already just support them through college for 4 years, the absolute bums. They can then be recruited whenever you have the desire, money, or slots to do so. Naturally, Constantine, the head of the Grand Orthodoxy, doesn't particularly care for this system, but if he is to wield the winds of magic in his armies, he's gotta pay for it anyway. It's up to him, and therefore you, how much you want to do that, but the uneasy peace between the Ice Court and the Orthodoxy does mean that he has access to the school at least. I'll admit that I find this mechanic something of an odd one. On the surface, it gives you a lot more choice, but at the same time, it's going to make it where hiring any one of these is a long, tedious process, and many of the heroes and generals you'll churn out will be exact cookie cutters of each other, so a prefabricated option would be appreciated here. And with Constantine's well-known hatred of ice magic and the ice schools, it is very odd that he has access to any of that. While I realize not having them would hinder his campaign, it would also make it more unique and interesting. And I'm sure there's some buffs that the Creative Assembly could add to him to offset any of their losses. Finally, we come to the tech tree. It is a tech tree that works pretty much just like every human tech tree you've seen. For KISLEV, their technology focuses on 4 key areas: the land and its 3 great cities. Each group contains 3 technologies that require a prerequisite number from the previous tier before they can unlock. Within a group, several of the technologies may also be linked. Like I said, it's a human tech tree. To begin with, a few technologies in each set are available. Progressing along the land path simply needs a few from each box completed to unlock the next. However, the 3 tracks based around the great cities, KISLEV, Prague, and Erengrad, require those cities to be in your faction first before they can unlock. Each city focuses on differing upgrades across a host of units, income types, and other benefits. As far as gating mechanics go, it's actually pretty interesting and does encourage you to follow a certain style of gameplay. And as you can imagine, uniting all 3 cities under you gives a significant advantage in terms of what you can do and the power of your settlements and armies. It may also provide some surprising results, as teased by the Creative Assembly. And that is the base faction mechanics for KISLEV. Note that Katerin and Constantine will both receive their own unique mechanics, we just don't know what they are yet. Revealing these mechanics after the complexity of Cathay and the mind-blowing awesomeness of Tzeentch does make KISLEV appear a bit simpler. Many people have postulated that KISLEV will be the more beginner-friendly faction, with more straightforward mechanics and a simpler playstyle, and the mechanics here certainly hint at that. But only time will tell how it actually will play in-game. As it is, there's not very much to say about these mechanics. They feel more derivative than original, and for many of you who play the Empire for the 40th time in a row, it's exactly what you're looking for. Because just because something is familiar doesn't mean it's bad. But those are the mechanics for KISLEV. If you want to be notified about future Total War news, or just have someone read the blog to you because you can't be bothered to read or sort through all the multiple sources required to get all this information, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and it's always fun to hear what you think about what's been revealed. But until then, thanks for watching.